What is going on, guys? Um, I just want to take a second to, first of all, I want to take a second to shout out to Clipper Nation, the most loyal, easily the most loyal fans in the NBA for the shit that we have to put up with on what seems like a yearly basis. Shouts out to Clipper Nation. And shouts out to you guys for checking in on this podcast. This is the first season that we decided to do this. Roland and I had been talking about it for a long time,
hmm
and we decided to just go for it. There was a lot of fun moments this season, despite what happened in the end. But we really appreciate it. We're going to continue making this stuff. Just shouts out to you guys for tuning in, and we will continue this journey. But yep, for those of you that don't know or that are living under a rock, the LA Clippers were eliminated in Game 6 in Dallas by the Mavericks, and the series is over, or the season is over for the LA Clippers. The 2-1-3 era, as we know it, might be over. We're going to get into all of that coming up. But yeah, uh, obviously a whole lot to talk about, guys, and it's not going to be easy, so bear with us. Here we go. Without further ado, let's make it happen.
What's up, Clipper Nation? And welcome to the Clip Service Podcast. Please make sure to find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Deezer, Amazon Music, YouTube, and you can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Clip Service Pod. I'm Rolla, and this is my co-host Nick. Let's get right into it.
Yeah, guys. So yeah, like I said up top, it's officially over for the 2023-2024 season for the LA Clippers. As far as we go, that was the end of our playoff pod, a very short playoff pod segment. And we will now be jumping into a very early, a much earlier than expected off-season archives. So we will be basically releasing episodes, sporadically throughout the off season as it has started as of now. A very long off season, but so yeah, we're not gonna necessarily be putting out our regularly scheduled episodes. But if something of note happens, or if any Clipper related news comes up, or anything that we feel is worthy of talking about, we're gonna hop
Mhm.
on and at the very least do a quick show for you guys. But yeah, so let's just run down this game 6. Let's just get it over with. Rip the Band-Aid off. The Clippers lose to the Dallas Mavericks 114-101. I'm gonna mix it up a little bit. I'm gonna start on the other side real quick. Kyrie Irving. Um, I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say that Kyrie Irving completely saved Luka's ass this series.
Oh,
Every
easily.
single game. Every
Easily.
single game.
Except for
Do you
game
agree?
five. Except for game five.
Except for
But
game 5. Okay, yes.
yeah,
But like,
he saved him this series.
granted Luka was dealing with a leg injury that we heard
And
about,
sickness,
and he
apparently.
apparently had a cold, whatever. Kyrie Irving put on a masterclass this series, and it was no different in the closeout game 6. Kyrie Irving had 30 points, and it was capped off by a ridiculous isolation possession on PJ Tucker, where he was basically breaking PJ Tucker down. Took it all the way to the right corner, pulled up for 3-point play, falling out of bounds. Very similar to the one that Paul George hit in game 4,
Very similar.
but was fouled, 4-point play. It was kind of just, the game was basically over at that point, but it was just a nice little chef's kiss on the masterclass that Kyrie Irving was able
hmm
to give the Clippers in 6 games. Yeah, you know how I said last episode that this was the end game. There's only one option. Well, Kyrie Irving, if you guys are familiar with the Avengers, Thanos grabs a moon and throws it at Tony Stark. Kyrie Irving grabbed a fucking planet and threw it on the Clippers single-handedly with that shot, and it put
Yeah.
us away. So Kyrie Irving was amazing. Luka Doncic wasn't too bad either. 28 points, 13 assists, 7 rebounds. Normally you would say that that's a fantastic game for anybody else, but Luka Doncic is Luka Doncic, so it's a little bit of a quieter game for him. PJ Washington,
1 of 10
uh,
from three. Luka
what's that?
Doncic. Luka Doncic went 1 of 10 from three.
He did. Luka wasn't shooting great from three all series long,
Yeah.
or like truly. PJ Washington, 14 points, was efficient, 4 for 9. That dude's on my shit list, but he had a fantastic game
Yeah.
where he needed to. Maxi Kleba ended up uh, he ended up trying to finish over Amir Coffey in this one and fell really hard. Tried
Hmm.
to give it a go, went back to the locker room. I think it was reported that he had a full dislocation of something in his elbow, and he's probably going to be out for the series, which is a tough blow for the Mavs. Not a fan of Maxi Kleba in any way, shape, or form, but that is always tough to see. Hopefully, he gets well soon.
Yeah.
They got some help from Daniel Gafford. Daniel Gafford had a play where he completely dropped a shoulder into Zoo. Should have been called an offensive foul. Instead, finished through the contact and won, which was just another statement play that they had this game.
Yeah.
The Mavs played from the jump, played super physical as they have been all series. Played super physical, played like they wanted to close it out, and they did.
Hmm.
Rolla, do you want to talk about the other side? Because I don't even know if I have the stomach to talk about the Clippers right now in
Of
this
course.
game.
So I'll start from the top. Sorry, I don't have the bounce in my tone like I did
That's all
in the
right, dude.
previous podcast. I didn't have the bounce like the Clippers didn't have the
It's all
bounce
right. We're
in
gonna
the
bring the
game.
energy in the off season, guys. This is just a little fresh for
It's a
us.
little depressing, but
Yeah.
we'll start with PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker had 8 points, a plus
Wow.
minus of -14, 3 turnovers and 2 boards in 20 minutes.
He
And
started this game, by the way.
he did start. So
That
PJ
was
Tucker was the surprise lineup change that Ty Lue had mentioned earlier in the week. And it left a lot of Clipper fans and basketball fans in general pretty baffled as to why he would do that. But I mean, PJ Tucker, like we were
also happy
saying,
birthday, PJ Tucker. PJ
oh,
Tucker turned 39 today.
oh
So,
shit, dude.
yeah,
Well, I mean, he's still a champion.
of course,
He still has played in so many playoff games. I think
of
they
course.
mentioned during the broadcast that he had been to 2 conference finals and obviously a finals championship run. So he's been there before, but I just don't think he was necessary in a starting lineup currently. Uh, Obviously, it didn't fucking work. So moving on. Paul George, who is supposedly the star of the team, superstar. He gets paid $50 million a year. He dropped 18 points. He had a team leading plus minus of -19. 1 block, 2 turnovers, 1 steal, 5 assists, 11 boards. 6 of 8 from the field, 2 of 10 from three. Or sorry, 6 of 18 from the field, 2 of 10 from three.
Rolla, if you guys remember, Rolla wanted Paul George to at least shoot 25
Mm-hmm.
field goal attempts, and he was 7 field goal attempts short of
Correct.
this. And what
Correct.
happened? What did you say would happen if he didn't, Rolla?
We're shipping him off to China, bro. I
Dude,
mean,
Paul
we
George
were,
would average 200 points in China for
of
sure.
course, but I mean, at least he'd be a superstar there. I'm sure in the big games he would still collapse. He'd still find a way.
Damn.
Uh, Moving on, Vita Zubac, honestly, had a fantastic series.
Shouts out to Zoo.
I have been a big hater on Zoo, especially against Luka. In previous series and in previous matchups, I think he usually gets roasted, but I think he really locked in this series.
Dude, he might have been one of the better defenders on Luka, like
Yeah,
on the times that he switched on to Luka. Like,
yeah, he did a great job. Luka was basically non-existent from the 3-point line, and Zoo was aware of that and kind of shut him down. Honestly, he had 17 points. He was -3, um, 11 boards, so not too bad of a game from Zoo. 6 of 11 from the field, 5 of 8 from the free throw line. So I mean, we would prefer obviously 8 of 8, but you can't ask too much more of a center to go more than 5 and 8. I feel like that's
yeah,
enough to get the job done. So I don't really have much to say about Ivica Zubac. I think he had a great series. He,
he needed to be
you know,
involved more
he
on
did need to be
offense.
involved more. And as much as I have hated on him, I would, he's one of those players I think that deserves to stay on this Clipper squad, just
I
from
agree.
just from the way he played this series.
I agree.
We didn't have much energy from almost everyone on our team, and he was one of the few people that had energy. Moving on to James Harden, the new acquired superstar on the Clippers. He was meant to save the team. He was meant to come in and bring order to the team. He was meant to bring scoring, assists, control the game, win us games. And in this series, he won us one game,
I would say two. He really
two.
put the team on his back for about 2 games, and he was consistent for the most part. Like, he really was.
James Harden was not consistent. He had 7 points in game 5.
Okay, yeah, but nobody was good that game. Like I don't
Yeah, the
know.
thing is James
I'm willing to
Harden,
give James Harden a little more grace.
absolutely not. James
Okay.
Harden is a previous MVP, previous league scoring champion, scoring 7 points in a playoff game. Unless we use the excuse of maybe he's too old, we are watching other players such as Jalen Brunson, such as Kevin Durant, LeBron James, all these other top players. I have never seen a top player score single digits in a playoff game.
Okay, well let's remove LeBron
But
and KD out of that because their teams went to Cancun before ours did.
of
Let's put
course,
it that way.
but I think there's a difference between, Charles Barkley said this, and I can't remember if I mentioned this in the last podcast, but Charles Barkley said this in one of the post game, like TNT post game shows.
Uh,
We don't care if I don't want to say we don't care if the team loses, but most basketball fans, they don't care. Like for example, the Orlando Magic and the Cavs played today. I'm not an Orlando Magic fan, but they still competed. We don't care if you lose. We don't care if you get swept. But as a star on the team, we care if you fucking show up. Show up, drop your points, do what you gotta do. If the team loses, you live with that. At least you know you played your heart out.
yeah.
We lost, and James Harden looked like shit. Like shit.
Yeah. No, I mean you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
But we can go into this. We can go into this later. I'll finish up the box score.
Okay.
James Harden had 16 points, 1 block, 13 assists, 7 boards. Terrence Mann, this dude played with so much heart.
He did.
He's not I would say in our starting lineup, he's in scoring option for this series. He's maybe 4th or 5th on the scoring option, and he had 14 points, 2 turnovers, 3 of 6, 6 boards. He looked like the only player on the team that actually wanted it. They showed Terrence Mann at the end of the game with his head in his hands, and honestly, you just got to feel for him. I mean, we started out our podcast season, claiming that Terrence Mann is the key, claiming that he is the guy that we would die for. And it's true. It's games like this that makes us such huge fans of him,
Yeah.
because you can see that he really wants it, that he brings the energy, and he's the type of player that he's like a glue type player that when it comes down to big games, He's gonna do the little things for your team to get you guys there. We just need more from our superstars. But moving on. Mason Plumlee had 0 points.
Yeah, I mean,
Mason Plumlee had 0 points, 0 blocks, 0 steals, 0 assists,
he had the
and
Tony
zero
Snell.
boards. And he had a total of 2 minutes played, and he had a -7 in 2 minutes
Dude,
with all
that's actually
zeros
insane,
with a
dude.
personal foul.
That's actually insane. Yeah, Mason Plumlee,
Um,
it's been real. Your career has been solid. You played on some good teams. Pack it up. It's
he
over.
needs to go, bro.
I'm
Like
sorry.
Nick was saying, he shouldn't be in the NBA. He's really that
No, that
bad.
was Connor. That was
Oh,
Connor
that
that
was
said
Connor
that.
saying
Yeah.
that. Yeah, he shouldn't be in the NBA. I agree. He's really bad. He's not NBA level. He's not an NBA center, and he needs to be off the team,
Yeah.
along with the next player, Russell Westbrook. Like I said in the last podcast, I will be referring to Russell Westbrook as Russell Westbrook moving forward. He had 6 points, -8, plus or minus 1 steal, 1 assist, 1 board in 9 minutes. He played like shit, but what else is new?
The Russ
Uh,
situation bums me out, man. It does.
I
Because
really don't care, dude. Russ, congratulations on a fantastic career. He was an MVP,
he
but
had his
as of today,
moments. He had
he's
his moments this
trash, dude.
season.
And he's been trash. He had his moments this season, but he's been trash, bro. And I called him out last year in the playoffs, and everyone thought I was crazy because, he did so much for us. Like, I guess against the Suns with, Paul George was out. It was really only Kawhi that was the star against the Suns.
For the
And
first game and a half.
yeah, and Russell Westbrook kind of put the team on his back. But we still ended up losing because he bricked shots last year. And this year, he
I
did
don't
the
think
same
that's fair.
thing. This year, he did the same thing, brick shots. Not only did he brick shots, but he was a distraction. He caused so many problems for our team, and he helped the Mavs. He gave the Mavs motivation. So Russell Westbrook needs to be off my team. Amir
So
Coffey,
with
2 points.
or sorry, we'll go into it after you go through the box
Yeah,
score.
Amir Coffey, 2 points, -14. I'll just go through all this trash. Uh, Brandon Boston Jr. Played 1 minute. I'm not going to talk about him.
No.
Norman Powell had 20 points. He's a +6.
Norm
Four
tried in this
boards.
one. Norm tried in this one, but I generally I don't know. I want to know what you think, but uh, generally speaking, I was pretty disappointed with Norm this series.
Yeah, he had 20 points. He kind of was a little bit of an offensive power. I think first half he was very strong for our team. The first half ended 56-56, I believe,
Yeah, it was
or
tied.
57. But yeah, it was tied at halftime. So I thought he was playing well for us. I don't want to say the entire game, but I think that up until halftime, I think he was very impactful for our team in that game. But overall, not enough. So that's the box score for the Clippers. Very depressing to see, very depressing to read. Um, is there anything you want to? Is there anything you want to say about that, Nick?
Um, yeah, I mean this one felt like if we didn't like we would know within the first 4 minutes whether or not our season was over in this one. That was my sentiment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Mavs came out strong. We didn't look good. It was kind of looked like it was more of the same. We had a rally in the second quarter that got us back and tied it, which is kind of just a microcosm of what this season was in the sense that like we're figuring things out, right? Like just when the fans are starting to pull away, oh, we're getting reeled back in. Like maybe there's a chance, right? We're about to tie this up. We go into the second half, we come out swinging. We can maybe force a game seven, go back to LA, and really make this a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Clipper fans are watching that, and we're thinking, okay, like what happens if we go to game seven? What do we have to prepare for? Because we're always we get ahead of ourselves and we get too much hope. It's easy to get excited, but that did not happen. We tied it up and immediately came out flat
Mm-hmm.
in the third quarter.
Yep.
And Kyrie put us away again. And Paul George and James Harden didn't have an answer. It was just the writing was on the wall. We started the third quarter the way we started off the first quarter, and it wasn't good. And
Flat.
yeah, as far as the game goes, like what happened between the lines, um, a little disappointed in Ty Lue. Ty Lue is obviously a very polarizing character with Clipper fans.
Mm-hmm.
I personally think that coaches get blamed a lot more than they should in the NBA for faults of players that are getting paid $40 million to play a
Mm-hmm.
game and to practice. Whereas a coach, you can go out, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? So a
True.
coach can tell their players to the T what the game plan is, and that still doesn't guarantee that that's going to happen, right?
Right.
I think that there were a few things in this series, and particularly in this game, that I really do think were, they weren't great by Ty Lue. I do think that he's a fantastic coach overall. He has his faults. I don't think we can do a whole lot better from him. Excuse me, do a whole lot better than him. For those of you that want Ty fired, that's just my stance. I don't know if we would be able to replace him with somebody that's better. But in this series and in this game particularly, it really rubbed me the wrong way. Having the trick up your sleeve let's start PJ Tucker at the 4. Number one, like I said on last show, PJ Tucker really shouldn't be playing the 4. He should be playing the 5 in small ball lineups at the very
Facts.
least,
Facts.
because he's not a super willing shooter. And you put him next to a guy that can't shoot. It's just, I don't know. And yeah, so it was that. And I really was hoping that Bones was going to get some minutes here, because I was really fearful for what if we on the chance that we would see more of the same from Russ, and we did. And I think that's partly on Ty, where Russ was still camping in the corner. He was shooting a ton of catch and
Oh
shoot threes in the corner, and
God.
Russ was really, really struggling, like, on offense, and setting him up, running sets where Russ is just standing in the corner. A lot of guys were just standing in the corner and standing around this series. There was no off-ball movement, but when you have Russ out there, you look at snapshots and clips of the Mavericks, the way that they guarded those possessions, and you have 2-3 guys in the paint, and nobody's within 10 feet of Russell Westbrook.
Mm-hmm.
And so by doing that, you're effectively closing out the paint and allowing the Mavs to double anybody that gets the ball. That I think was on Ty. But
Can I
yeah,
ask you another question?
sure.
Um, do you have an excuse for Ty on our defensive strategy?
Um, I think I mean, Ty's not, his specialty is offense. It's always been offense. That I think Dan Craig is our defensive coordinator, so it's kind of a team effort as far as the coaching staff being able to come up with defensive schemes. Yeah, our defense was horrible, and whether or not that's on the coaches or whether or not that's on the players, I would imagine that Ty Lue and the coaching staff weren't okay with the way that the Clippers were playing defense. Um,
It seemed like
but
nothing changed between game 5 and game 6.
yeah, I saw a lot less spamming the ball handlers in Game 6, which was a huge reason why we lost Game 5. Um, we were trying to double team ball handlers. There was a lot more single coverage being run, but the issue was, and I think this is why this falls on the players a little bit more. The issue was communication. Guys would come and soft help a little bit on ball handlers, and nobody rotated out to the corner, or nobody rotated, and the Mavs would consistently find the open guy. PJ
Yep.
Washington had a solid game for that reason
He was
alone.
just I feel like half the time PJ Washington was just standing in the corner. There was a point in time where I think he was just like waving and he was just like chilling. He was literally just chilling with his arms down in the corner until finally Luka just saw him, pass him the ball, and he had an open three. And this happened like
Yeah.
multiple times in the game. And that's why Maxi Kleba had so many threes last game. Same
Yeah,
situation type thing. They're just standing there open. Our defense was shit.
it was bad. There's not really much else to say in this game, which sucks because it was literally just more of the same stuff that we've seen in the bad games from this series. Lack of attention to detail,
Mm-hmm.
lack of aggression from the guys that should be giving us 30, 35, 40. Um, Weird rotations. Yeah, I don't know. There's not much else to say, guys. And I wish there was. I wish we would have an explanation for you, but this whole season has been kind of just a throw your hands up and yell at the clouds because there's no answers for some of these things sometimes. And so, yeah, unfortunately, the Clippers season ended at the buzzer of this game, and the Clippers have a ton of things to answer, a ton of questions to answer this offseason. Um, we're gonna take a little break, and we're gonna jump right into just an explanation and a summary and a recap of the season as a whole, what we think is to be expected going into this very long offseason. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back, guys.
What's up, guys? We're back, and I think what we are going to start off with on the second half of this podcast is the discussion around Paul George and Kawhi, the 2-1-3 era. This started off in 2020?
2019.
2019, and now we are in 2024, and we have seen that nothing has changed for the Clippers. We have gotten to one Western Conference Finals, and that was it. So I think.
Oh shit!
I mean, I hate to say it. So first, I want to talk about Paul George. I need to see this man in China next year.
No, dude. No.
He he shouldn't be seen as a superstar anymore. I don't think that there needs to be a discussion. I don't think that he really has an argument on being a superstar or being a star, even for that matter. Because we're seeing players like Donovan Mitchell today lead his team to beat a 4 seed, a 5 seed Magic team. We're seeing Paolo Banchero, this is his second season leading his team to the playoffs for the first time. 7 games against a Cleveland Cavaliers team that is, pretty good. Everyone is pretty aware how good they are. They're 4 seed. So we're seeing players like Paolo Banchero. We're seeing players like Jalen Brunson step up for their teams. We're seeing players like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander step up for their teams. We're seeing Anthony Edwards put on a fucking show. And then we see a guy like Paul George, who all these kids apparently are trying to model their games after. I think that at this point, if I hear a discussion around building your game after Paul George or looking up to Paul George, I'm just gonna assume that you're a loser and you want failure for the rest of your career and the rest of your life.
Dude.
Carmelo Anthony had a discussion on a podcast, I think it was last week, on how kids these days want to be more like Paul George than Steph Curry. And if you're a kid and you want to be more like Paul George than Steph Curry, I'm just going to assume you're an idiot. That's it.
What if it's like a 3-year-old kid, dude?
I don't care. You're a moron. I'll tell you, do yourself a favor and look into the history of Paul George. Look into the history of Steph Curry.
Yeah, take out a history book, you 5-year-old jackass.
And compare them. And if you come back to me and tell me that you would rather be Paul George, I'm going to assume you're an idiot. Point blank.
I think it's more so. I think it's more so the archetype. I don't give a
fuck about the archetype, dude. If you tell me Paul George is the guy you want to model your game after, I'm going to assume you're an idiot. You can say Kevin Durant. That's fine. I mean, look at Anthony Edwards. He said his his role model, the guy he looks up to, was Kevin Durant, and look at what Ant's doing these days. Uh, I mean, Paul George with 18 points in a closeout game, putting up what was it, 17 shots? He put up 18
18.
shots, 2 of 10 from three in a closeout elimination game in a year where everyone is aware of the importance
Yeah.
of this season,
Due for an extension.
due
Like,
for
it
an
was.
extension, and this dude has the nerve to hop on a fucking podcast. Ooh, I
Yeah.
can't wait for this next podcast. I swear to God, if he doesn't have Yes Man around him, I'm gonna need the two hosts that host the show with him. I need them to roast him. I need them to say something
It's not
because
happening.
I mean it's not gonna happen because they're on the payroll. But
They're also like his best friends.
yeah, if I were a best friend, Nick, if you were out there playing like shit, I'd be like, bro.
Oh, I know you would.
I'd be like, bro, like I love you,
Get
but
back
you
in the
played like
gym.
fucking dog shit, bro, on some real shit. Paul George played like dog shit, bro.
He did.
We
He
are
did.
seeing Kyrie Irving put on a show. I've been on record telling the world, our Clipper Nation podcast viewers, that I believe Paul George is the most talented player in the NBA. I've on multiple occasions said that he is more talented than Nikola Jokic. And
You
this is
have.
what this dude does in the playoffs. 15 games, 15 points in a game 5, 18 points in a game 6 closeout game. What is going on? He needs to be off my team, dude. I there's really no excuse at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't. Here's the thing: is like it may sound like Roll is simply just being negative because that's how we feel. But at the end of the day, dude, like it is sad. Like we really came into this era wanting to see these two succeed and wanting to see them take this franchise to a place to these heights that we had only dreamed of. We're not. Paul George seems like a great dude. There's been so many moments throughout this era that he's been really easy to root for. The biggest one was the journey to the conference finals that he's spearheaded. In
mhm.
Kawhi's absence, that was the version of Paul George that I'm like, this guy's gonna really do it for us. Like he can do this. This version of Paul George can do anything. But there comes a point where you have to contextualize and you have to look and say, okay, these people are making millions and millions of dollars.
Yep.
They don't know that you exist as far as most viewers go and most fans. And that sounds really harsh, but it's like we don't owe these we don't owe these people anything in terms of like I won't give up on this person because I just, like I have to, like I got so much love for them and stuff like that. It's like, yes, but when they've let your team down so many times, at the end of the day, you kind of just have to kind of have to cut the line and, let them float. And that's kind of where a lot of
Off
fans
to
are.
China.
Yeah, dude, that's where a lot of fans are with Paul George, particularly. With Kawhi, it's kind of a different story because with him, it's a different it's a completely different topic that we have to criticize him on, and that topic is something that he can't physically help. He has the resume. He's, and but with Paul George, it's a matter of something that's very easy to visualize, and that's just not having the will and having the attention to detail and the drive and the want to to do right for your team.
Mm-hmm. Zero
And
drive.
like I said, it sounds like we're being harsh. But at the end of the day, we have to be honest with ourselves. And I'm kind of on the same boat, Rolla. I it would hurt because like I said, I do I Paul George is a great dude. He's had the amazing moments for this team, but I think I'm of the opinion as well uh, to say that I think if we can get a good return for him in a trade package, I think that it's got to happen. Something's got to happen,
Yeah.
and he had his chance to really show. I mean, he's due for an extension, a contract extension that he's openly wanted, and he wants to stay and he wants his money and stuff, but you have to play like it. And this was his chance, and he didn't live up to those standards, and that's why we say what we say. But let's go ahead and roll. I'm gonna have you talk about the other guy that you mentioned, Mr. Kawhi Leonard. Give your opinion on him. This one's a little
So,
tricky. This one's a little trickier. It really is.
so yeah, me and Nick have had a little bit of a discussion previously on Kawhi. But I just want to explain my stance on Kawhi. I do not want Kawhi to be a Clipper next season. I don't think he is an NBA player anymore. I don't think he can play on the level of an NBA player in the sense of health. I don't think he's capable of an 82 game season and 4 rounds of a playoffs after. He's a 2-time champion, 2-time Finals MVP, one with the Spurs and one with the Raptors. He went to the Raptors one year. He was kind of like the final piece that they needed. And he was even a little bit injured in that series, in that final series. But I think that we look at Kawhi today and we look at the past couple years since that Raptors finals run, and it seems like he has gotten worse every year. The last time, like I said in the previous podcast, the last time Kawhi, I had put the blame on Game 5's loss on Kawhi. Right? Remember, I had a list of 3 players that I put the blame on. Third was Russ. 2 was Paul George. Number 1 is Kawhi. Because I think Kawhi has completely let the Clippers franchise down. I feel swindled. I feel bamboozled. I feel like he tricked us into believing that he was capable of leading our team to a finals run and to a championship. And he cannot do it. He's not capable of getting there. And I think that's something that a lot of people aren't realizing. And I was talking to my dad about this earlier today. Kawhi cannot play at an NBA playoff level. Let's say, for example, we're a 4 seed. I mean,
Well, he can, but he's at this point you don't trust him to.
No, I don't think he can. I mean,
Okay.
we saw a 4-5 series with the Magic and the Cleveland Cavaliers that went to 7 games. If we had won Game 6, right, this Clippers series would have gone to 7 games. Is Kawhi capable of going 7 games first round, 7 games second round, 7 games third round, potentially, and a 7 games finals run? Could he go 28 games of NBA playoff level basketball without getting injured? Is he capable of it? Do you believe, as a Clipper fan, as a guy who watches these NBA players, knowing how much stress it's put on their bodies, knowing at the pace that they play at, the defensive mindset that these players have, the planning that they have on Kawhi, on these superstars, is he capable of taking and leading a team for that many games? And I don't think he can last 2 rounds. I mean, going forward, his knees are only going to get worse. He's only going to age. And I don't think that this NBA level of basketball is for him anymore, personally. I don't think he should be a Clipper going forward. I think the 2-1-3 era should be officially done as of the end of the season.
Yeah, that's that's kind of where I disagree to some point. Um, and it's so tricky because I think that when you really get down and contextualize a full NBA season, a championship season, a lot of it falls on luck, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you look at Kawhi's last championship. He comes to Toronto, and in the first year that he's there, it was his first year that they won, right?
Yeah.
His first year that he was there, he managed to stay relatively healthy enough to win a championship. And he ran, it was a great shot, but it was a lucky shot. The shot that he hit against the Philadelphia 76ers. It took 5
Mm-hmm.
bounces on the rim. It fell in.
Right.
And then he goes in to play against in the finals, goes to play against a Golden State Warriors team that didn't have, if I'm not mistaken, they didn't have Kevin Durant, right?
Yeah. Tore his
And
Achilles.
yeah, and then they didn't have Clay either.
Mm-hmm. Tore his ACL.
For like half of the season or something, or for half of the series.
No, he tore his
So
ACL. Yeah. For
no,
half
I
the
know, but
series.
like,
Yeah,
but was
yeah,
it during that series or was
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
before? Okay.
No, it was during that series. You're right.
So there is a level of luck involved in winning a championship, and I think that the thing that you have to think about with Kawhi, in my eyes, is when he is healthy, and there is luck involved, good luck, which is not something that we get a lot of apparently in the Clipper sphere. Um, can this guy be? Can this guy give you championship level basketball? And I've not seen, other than the bubble, I've not seen a reason to believe that Kawhi Leonard is still incapable of leading a team to a championship when he's healthy. Now that makes that's where it gets tricky. Is do you believe that he is just there, like luck is never going to go his way and he's going to be out every single time that we try for the next 3 years, because that is how long we have him after the contract extension? For the next 3 years, do you think that he's going to be missing 3 more straight playoff appearances? My answer is no. A lot of people would say yes. I'm sure Rolla would say yes as
Of
well.
course.
um but just with all of that considered, with the fact that we have a new stadium opening up, the fact that he just signed a contract extension, it would be hard for me to say that we should trade him unless there's a home run move that we can make where we get a ton of assets, young assets and picks and stuff like that. I wouldn't be able to in confidence say that it would be a good move if we were to trade him for like another star that had never won a championship, or something along those lines, some more of like an adjacent move, just
Mm-hmm.
because they are theoretically more healthy. Because I mean, who knows? We trade him for somebody like, let's say we trade him for Donovan Mitchell, right? We get Donovan Mitchell, game one, round one, Donovan Mitchell tears his Achilles or something. Then we're having the same conversation. Oh, it's just bad luck. But we have a
Right.
guy that doesn't have the championship experience that Kawhi does. So it's hard to say that it's not worth the risk. And that's why I think the Paul George thing, it needs to be more of a premium as far as like focusing on maybe moving on from Paul George, because he was given the chance, he was healthy, and with him it was literally just the inability to get it done, to hold down the fort.
Right.
Um,
Can I
so
ask you this question regarding Kawhi?
sure.
Um, I personally don't think that there is a risk. I just genuinely don't think that his body is able to do it. I
And you
just
might be
think that
right.
I just think that if we keep Kawhi on this team, I think that every year we're going to end up in the same position where he plays 60, 70 games and his body isn't able to take him there when it comes to playoff season. I mean, we saw it this year. We saw it last year. We saw it the year before. We saw it the year before. And so his trend has been going down. At least with last year, he played, what, 2 games? This year, I mean, sure, if we want to say he played 2 games this year, fine. But he really didn't. He played like shit for 2 games, and he sat out for the rest of the playoffs.
And he's got the Olympics coming up, and if he
And he's
plays
got the
in that,
Olympics coming up.
that is gonna rub a lot of people the wrong way.
And he's gonna
Um,
play, and he's probably gonna ball out. That's the thing, because he only has to put in half energy to play against these random countries.
yeah.
But like I said, I just don't think that I don't think that it's in the cards for Kawhi. I think he had a fantastic career. I don't think he has anything to prove. I mean, he still has the talent of a superstar, I believe. I mean, we've seen it in the regular season. We've seen it on multiple occasions in the recent history. I just think that when it comes to the playoffs, his body cannot play at that level.
Also, it makes it even more difficult because we had the year where it's like he was really trying to prove to people, hey, I can string together a healthy
Hmm.
season, and I think he overdid it in the regular season. And it's like, that's what kind of rubs me the wrong way. It's like a lot of people can't have their cake and eat it too. It's like you want Kawhi, you hate the load management, you want Kawhi to play back to backs. He did that, but look at what happened.
Yeah.
Like he was obviously like there was no structural damage, so you know that he didn't tear anything.
Hmm.
But what
Well, we don't know
happens
that
when you
yet.
that's what they came out and said there's no structural damage unless they're fully lying, which they would be fined for, I think.
I think
Um,
I think that they would have to be lying, dude. I mean,
so the
personally,
way that
I don't. Why would they? Why wouldn't he not play for? I mean, Luka's playing on a sprained knee.
No, I know, but Luka's younger, and Luka. So basically, the way I understand it, from what I've heard from people, is when you have that condition that Kawhi has, he has tendinosis in his knee, and he's had so many injuries to the same area of his body that the joints, there's not a lot of cartilage left, and so it's basically, it's very close to bone on bone. So when you overuse it, you're going to have a lot more inflammation than someone like Luka, who sprained his shit, and he's still young, and he's still got a ton. His body is very much intact and healthy. With Kawhi, you overuse those parts of your body that have had so much damage. You're going
Hmm.
to get insane inflammation, and it's not even just a matter of pain at that point. It's a matter of everything's so inflamed that you can't move fluidly. Things
Can
are
I
not
ask you?
moving.
Can I ask you another a follow up question? Hypothetically, if we had played, let's say we played up until we won the West, we won the West. They're in conference finals, and then we went to the finals. Have had his knee inflamed the same way? Do you think that he would have sat out the finals?
I don't think. Okay, so that's a great question. I don't think he would have sat out because he would have known what's at stake. But I think that we would have seen what we saw in Game 2 and Game 3, where it was a very much a lesser version of Kawhi, just because he physically couldn't get up, or he physically couldn't, jump or have the lift on his shots or anything like that. Like I
Hmm.
think he would have given it a try. I think honestly, my opinion is that he could have tried to do what he did in game 2 and in game 3 again this series later on, in game 5 or 6. But I think that he thought that, okay, like I would much rather be better for a theoretical round 2 because we have James Harden and we have Paul George, and Luka Doncic hasn't been playing well. They've just relied on Kyrie Irving pretty
Kyrie.
much, and this should be enough to get it done. This should be enough to get us out of the
Yeah, he
first round.
forgot Paul George doesn't have the mental fortitude
That's what I'm
to.
saying. I think that if there was no Paul George and there was no James Harden, I would be shocked if Kawhi Leonard didn't give it a try in Game 5 or in Game 6 in an elimination situation. But I think that he truly believed that if Paul George and James Harden could get them to the next level, whether for better or for worse, obviously for worse, but I think that was Kawhi Leonard's thought process. Like if we get the Thunder, I want to be able to give Shai Gilgeous my all.
Hmm.
And I think that's what he thought. Like James Harden and Paul George could hang with Luka, who is struggling, and Kyrie, who's a lot smaller than Paul George, and even James Harden. So I don't know. It's a lot of what ifs. I think we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. But my question for you, Rolla, would be before we get into player grades for the season and end this show. I want to hear what you think the Clippers should do. Just like give me a quick summary of what you want the Clippers to look like next season.
I want the Clippers
Full
to
rebuild.
be. I think we need to strip everything down. I think it needs to be
We're
exploded.
talking draft
They need
picks
they need to
and
drop
young.
a bomb on the team.
Like you want us to be a lottery team.
Hypothetically, yeah, I don't mind being a lottery team. I think we need draft picks. I think we need to build for the future. I think this project, you know, in 2019, it seemed like it was finally turning around for us. But obviously, in hindsight, it did not. I mean, there's always that argument about the PG and Kawhi trade with Shea,
I think
and
it's so stupid, but whatever.
I mean, I think it's stupid too. But looking at it now, is it really that stupid?
Well, obviously, 2-1-3 was
Because
a failure, and the trade was a failure. But you make that trade 10 times out of 10, and
of course,
that's my problem with it. Is a lot of people are like, "Dude, I never would have made that trade." It's like,
oh
no, yes,
no,
you would have.
no, you're an idiot if you wouldn't, because Kawhi was a Finals MVP at that point in time.
And Paul
He'd
George was a
just come
top
off.
3 candidate for the
Yeah,
MVP.
he had just
Like,
come off from from winning the chip. But also, I will say Paul George was still trash back then.
No,
I believe
he was almost an MVP that year. He was very good.
no,
Obviously,
dude,
he got
no
packed
that
up by
that wasn't the
Dame.
MVP. That wasn't the MVP year. Wasn't that the year? Oh, was that the MVP year, or
That was the
was that the
year that
Dame
he was
Lillard?
playing, that he was like considered for
You're right.
DPOY and he was considered for MVP.
That was Dame
Like
Lillard
that's
year.
why I'm saying it makes
God,
sense.
Paul George's whole career is just getting fucked on, bro. Jesus
Yeah,
Christ, bro.
yeah.
This dude sucks.
So Rolla wants us to rebuild.
Yeah,
Um,
bro. I'm over it, bro. I'm over Paul George, dude.
I got
I
you.
can't I cannot believe someone who has been in competition his entire life has no drive or passion. I just now remembered in a podcast recent or not recently, but I think this was maybe either last year or 2 years ago. Patrick Beverly had said um, a lot of these NBA players don't truly love the game of basketball. And he said a lot of the times it's the best player on the team. I think he was referring to Paul George. I do not think Paul George enjoys the game of basketball. I think he sees it as just a job, as just a job where he gets paid a lot of money, and that he just so happens to be really fucking good at. He has no passion for the game. He has no drive. He doesn't. It almost seems like he just steps on the court, and when it comes down to the fun, like to a closeout game, game six or a game five, he just kind of wants to go home. Like he has no drive to win the game. He has no drive to go further. He wants to get to Cancun. The one time we ever saw him have passion or drive was the year after he got bullied into depression after the bubble. He took us to the Western Conference Finals. That was the only time because he wanted to prove people wrong. Because he did that, he kind of feels like, oh, well, now I have nothing else to play for. I'm just going to play. Whatever happens, happens. This is why I kind of believe this after last year when he hyperextended his knee and he kept saying, oh, give me one more week, give me one more week. And I was always like, if you didn't tear anything, if nothing really happened outside of extending your knee and you need one more week, I feel like you can be on that floor. I feel like you can be on that floor, and I think you could play in a game, in a closeout game, or help the team in some sort of way by being on that floor, because he draws attention to people. He draws attention to him, and I don't know. I just feel like Paul George doesn't like the game. I think he shouldn't be on the Clippers, on a team, on a franchise that has been thirsting, has been wanting a championship for so long.
Oh, we're
He doesn't
thirsty. We are
he doesn't
thirsty
have
over
that
here.
passion. He doesn't have that want to win a championship, and he never will in his career. And that's
Yeah,
just it.
that's fair. That's fair. I think I don't necessarily think that he doesn't love the game. I think that he's been too consumed with external forces, whether it be the perception of what people think of him, or
Hmm.
critics, or this or that. And I think that he's just at a point where he's like kind of settling. I think that
Yeah.
I think I don't believe that anybody that, or I think very few people in the NBA don't love the game, because you really have to love the game to be able to get to the NBA. I just think that Paul George is kind of too consumed with um,
I mean,
everything
I think you could be burnt out.
outside the lines.
I think
Yeah,
you
I
could be
mean,
burnt out.
he could be burnt out. Oh, I think we're having some technical difficulties. Oh, we're back.
I'm back. Cool.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. Yeah, I just think that. Yeah, I just don't think that his focus is where it should be, and I don't think it has been for a while. And as far as like what I want for the Clippers next season, I would be shocked if we hit rebuild. I really would. Steve Ballmer's a businessman, and I think that he would see, he would find it a hard sell to have fans come in and sell out the new stadium to watch Bones Highland and Terrence Mann and Kai Jones ball up.
I think if he wasn't, I mean, he is a businessman, like you said, and a true businessman would invest in the future, and he would eat the costs now to reap the benefits later. I
I
think
think you
that we
can do
need
both.
to.
I think you can
Well,
do both.
I think if we keep someone like Kawhi or Paul George on this team, or we don't completely blow it up, or we make a lateral move, I think that we're still in the same position. I think we never win a chip, and I think that yeah, he's going to make money from people coming to see Kawhi, but eventually when Kawhi leaves, we're going to be back in a situation where we don't have anything, and then we're he's basically delaying what I'm asking for now.
It's tough because we share the city with one of the most prolific, historically great franchises in NBA history, and they are not rebuilding anytime soon. So you look at
No.
Ballmer's standpoint, it's like we have to we have to keep the market competitive, right? We don't want to be rebuilding while the Lakers go and win a bunch of championships. I'm not saying that that's my thought process, but I think that that might be Ballmer's. Um, and I would hate to be Steve Ballmer right now. Well, no, I would love to be Steve Ballmer right now because he's worth so much money. But I would hate to have to make the decisions that he's making right now because there's a lot of them. And I think, um, man, I think the first order of business needs to be. I think Lawrence Frank needs to be fired. I'm still of the belief that Ty Lue should be the coach of the Clippers. I think that he's a very good coach, and I don't think the market for coaches right now is very high. But I think we need a new GM. I think we need a new person in the front office because I mean it's just been like little red flags here and there. We trade or we let Isaiah Hartenstein, who's still contributing in a big way in the playoffs for the Knicks.
Yep.
We let him
Yep.
walk to try and sign John Wall. And prior to that, we go out and we get Rajon Rondo, thinking that this point guard thing is going to be it needs to be our focus. Um, Russ had a lot of good moments for us, but he kind of caved into Paul George's request to try and go out and get Russ. He got Russ. We trade
And Russ is
away,
trash.
yeah, we trade away picks to try and get 4 months of Eric Gordon, and
Right.
it was the pick that ended up being Cam Whitmore for the
Mm.
Rockets. And so we traded away 4 months, or we traded away Cam Whitmore for 4 months of Eric Gordon. It's been little things like that that have just been kind of perplexing. And
Yeah.
I think I think if we get a fresh new face, I'm looking at you, Bob Myers. If you want to get out of that booth and you want to come back to a GM position, Ballmer's got a lot of money.
I think he is
Uh,
going to come.
yeah, let Lawrence Frank
Boss.
walk. It's been real. He was the one that made the deal for Kawhi Leonard and Paul George at the time. That was such a power move. It's been great. I think we need a new voice in the front office. Bring Bob Myers in and then let him decide, okay, should we rebuild or should we retool around Kawhi? Either way, I think
Absolutely
this
not.
team is going to look completely different
I hope.
next season. And how different that is, I think, is up to obviously Lawrence Frank or whoever replaces him if he's fired. I don't. I would be shocked if Lawrence Frank is the GM next season. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of questions, and a lot of them won't be answered for a while um, for this team. But we are but two humble fans, so our opinion means nothing. We can just give what we want and what we think should happen. So, Clipper Nation, let us know what you guys think in the comment section. If you're watching this on YouTube, let us know. Tweet at us. Real quickly, just to finish off the show, Rolla, if you didn't have
Hmm.
anything else to say in regards to that, I want you to really quickly give your player grades for this season. Let's just go back and
Um,
forth.
are we giving player grades um, based on expectations and how they lived up to it, or are we giving player grades on generally how they played, like regular season playoffs?
That's a great question.
I say
Let's just
expectations
combine them. Okay, expectations, sure.
because I'm going to be harsh.
Okay. Well, expectations, we failed our expectations, so everybody's going to get an
Exactly.
F.
No,
So
not everyone's going to get enough. Terrence
let's
Mann,
just
bro.
say a combination of both. Let's just say how they played,
Okay.
their impact on the team, regular season and in playoffs.
Okay.
Um, let's just go down the line.
Gotcha.
So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna save Kawhi and PG for last.
Hmm.
So also, I'm just gonna group the rookies into a bunch because most of them didn't play. So we're gonna just say Musa Diabate, Kobe Brown, Jordan Miller, Xavier Moon, Brandon Boston.
Uh, I guess they got I would say like a B
Okay.
plus.
Yeah.
I
Jordan
don't. I think
Miller,
they were all
man,
solid.
Jordan Miller was killing it in the G League.
Hmm.
I think he either won G League MVP or he was the runner up. I would love to see that dude get some playing time next year.
Okay.
I like Kobe Brown, but personally, I think Jordan Miller's the guy out of those two picks
Okay.
that kind of has the most promise. But yeah.
Okay.
So the
Yeah.
next one would be Amir Coffey.
Oh, you didn't give a grade on the last one.
Oh, you want me to give mine too?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give them a B plus because
Okay.
there were moments where they came in and especially towards the end of the season they kind of did their thing. Obviously, you can't grade too harshly. Let's
Oh
or
my
maybe I'll
god.
give them a what's I'll give them an I for incomplete. How about that?
Wait, sorry, dude.
Wait, you're cutting out a little bit
Yeah, I cut out for a
on
second.
my end.
Jesus. What the hell?
Guys, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. I'm gonna take a quick break and we'll get right back to this. All right, guys, we are back. Sorry about that. We're just dealing with some issues on Rolla's side. His Wi-Fi is taking a shit on him. But yeah. So I think we left off at
Taking a shit
yeah.
on him.
I'm gonna give them an I for incomplete for those rookies, those young
Okay.
guys. All right, so let's go ahead and you know what I said Amir Coffee. Let's start with let's do Bones Highland next.
I think Bones Highland was, I think I would give him a C. I mean, I think the season started with us having a lot of, we thought that he would be kind of a big piece for us. But obviously that was before James Harden came
It
into the
was the
picture.
Harden trade that yeah.
Yeah. So I would give him a C. I mean, when he had his time to shine, he didn't really show it, but I think at the beginning of the season, he played really well. And then obviously he didn't really play in the playoffs, so there's really not much to go off of there.
Yeah, I'm gonna give him a D plus, and
Well,
I will explain that by saying I'm a huge, particularly like before the season started, big Bones Highland advocate. Big on Bones Highland. I was so stoked when we got him for 2 second rounders. I watched him a lot. Before the draft, was doing a little bit of research because I thought that he was a guy that would fall to the Clippers. He didn't end
hmm
up doing that. Didn't end up happening, but we ended up getting him. Very hyped on Bones Highland. To start the season, the first couple of games, he looked awesome. Harden trade happens. Felt bad for him. Wasn't getting a ton of playing time. We understand why. But then Russell Westbrook goes down with a hand injury, broken hand. Bones Highland slots into that sort of position or that sort of role to replace Russ. He had one good game where he had like 11 assists, like 4 steals, 5 steals, something like that. Fantastic game. And then after that, the stuff that you would hear from the Dallas or from the not the Dallas Mavericks, the Denver Nuggets was kind of starting to appear back in the back of my mind where they were saying that he played a little selfishly, like it was hard to put him into a scheme. And I
hmm
saw a lot of that. Like the focus wasn't there. And obviously to a much lesser degree, but it was very similar to what you saw with Paul George, where it's like this is your chance to step into a role and prove yourself. And I really didn't see that from Bones in that stretch, and it kind of soured my outlook on him. I still think he's a very good player. I think unless he can be a part of a trade package that secures us really good assets, I think that he's a guy to keep. I think there's a lot of potential there, particularly offensively. I love his story. I think he's a good kid. So yeah, but I think overall I'm going to give him a D plus for that reason. Um, Next up we have Amir Coffee.
uh, I thought Amir Coffee. I would give him a B plus. Um, I thought that he did a good job in the regular season. I said this during the regular season and in a couple of our podcasts, but um, I felt like he was such a solid player. I feel like we never really lost a game because of him. Um, and I thought he did a good job stepping into the role of basically Kawhi once Kawhi kind of went down. I thought he hit big shots for us, and in the playoffs, I thought he did a solid job, other than the last two games. But I mean, there's you can only ask for so much from your role players.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I would give him a flat B too, maybe a B minus. Just
damn
because
harsh.
yeah, just because, Amir's been so solid, and I really can't grade him any lower than that because Amir and Terrence, those two particularly, have been asked to do so many different things in the wake of all these injuries and stuff like that over the years. And they've really stepped up to the plate. Terrence Mann was drafted. Amir Coffey wasn't even drafted. And he
Hmm.
was on a two-way contract for several years.
Yeah,
And when he was guaranteed, I mean, he showed it. He proved that his growth as an NBA player has been really awesome to see. And he is still a very, very solid role player.
of
I
course.
think that this season was probably overall one of his worst in terms of like being able to kind of live up to what he was able to give us, the years prior. Because in the years prior, he would come in and he would give you like 20
Hmm.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think that his role was a little bit more increased this year because we didn't have Nico, we didn't have Rocco, Mook. So I think that maybe he wasn't ready for that, but he just didn't look as sharp, particularly defensively, as I had seen him in years past. But again, I can't grade him too harshly just because he's been asked to do so many different things. Next, we have Daniel Tice.
I would give Daniel Tice a. I would give him a. Honestly, I would give him an A. I thought he came into a situation, like midway through the season, and he, like, all we asked of him was to play hard and, get boards and show like a level of want, and I feel like that's what he gave us. It's kind of sad that we didn't play him more in the playoffs, and it
Yeah,
was
it's
mainly due to
it's
his height. But
perplexing.
yeah, I mean, I thought he was a great pickup personally.
Yeah,
What about you?
yeah, I'll give him an A too. It's
Hmm.
crazy, but I'll give him an A. Daniel Tice, right when we picked him up, he really kind of did everything that we needed him to do. There were moments when he would get played off the floor. Most of that was because of his size, and he
Hmm.
was guarding bigs that were a lot bigger than him and more physically imposing. But I mean, we saw him shoot threes. We saw him, at least hustle on defense. He's a pretty good finisher for his size. And I really think that Ty Lue should have played him more in this playoff series, particularly down the stretch when things were starting to look like, okay, we need to make some adjustment. Um, so yeah, Daniel Tice, I'll give him an A. Give Daniel Tice props. What what about PJ Tucker?
Uh, not applicable, I guess.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I really can't give him a grade. I feel like he didn't really do anything. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna give him an F. I'm gonna give PJ
damn.
Tucker an F because this is all he's also being graded on behavior in the classroom, and his behavior in the classroom was garbage.
Okay.
Up until the last couple months of the season when he really started to kind of like buy into his role a little bit more. But as you guys know, I hated that little PR tour that he went on where he was
Hmm.
super unhappy with his role. He didn't seem to realize that he was about to be 39 years old and that he's not effective on a basketball court anymore, unfortunately. And that kind of stuff is bad for a locker room. I would not be surprised if some of that permeated into the locker room and permeated into guys like Amir Coffey and Bones Highland and Terrence Mann and guys that were kind of on the fringe that were like, okay, like I'm questioning my role now. And maybe that was why they didn't play as aggressive. Like, I don't know. But yeah, I'm giving PJ Tucker an F. A fantastic career, one of the best defenders I've ever seen in his prime. But he is obviously so far over the hill
Yeah.
that he doesn't have anything left in the tank. And it was a great career. You should probably wrap it up and work on the shoe collection. You got a
Yeah.
fantastic job after the NBA. Start flipping shoes. Um, up next we have up next we have Mason Plumlee.
Uh, is there a letter or a grade worse than F? Because
Yeah,
that's what
let's
I would
give
give
him
him.
a G.
Yeah. Like Connor said, he shouldn't be in the NBA, and there's really not much else to say
And it
about
makes it
that.
even harder because, like, we went from Isaiah Hartenstein, who I
Ah,
really underestimated. When Hartenstein left, I was like, okay, like Mason Plumlee can fill this role still. Because Hartenstein, like, when he was with us, he was good, but
mhm,
his issue was like he would get into foul trouble a lot, or
yeah,
like a lot of times he would be out of position on defense. But like the one thing that he gave us was like that effort. He was like a big Westbrook.
yeah.
He gave us a lot of energy and effort. And obviously, he's responsible for a lot of the wins that the Knicks took here throughout the season and in the playoffs. So that kind of magnified Plumlee's ineptitude,
Hmm.
and that makes this grade even worse. So yeah, I'm giving Plumlee a Z. I'm giving him a fucking Z.
Okay,
Um,
I agree.
so yeah, Plum. Sorry, man. I've been harsh on you this season, but I've truly not seen a lower IQ center play for the Los Angeles Clippers, and we just watched Moses Brown play for the Clippers a
Jesus.
season ago. So, yeah, moving on from Mason Plumlee, uh, the polarizing figure himself, Mr. Russell Westbrook.
I would give Russell Westbrook uh, a D.
A D.
Um,
Okay.
I thought his regular season was okay. I thought he was. Um, I think Plumlee was the worst player in all of playoffs this year, and I think next up was
the
Russell
whole the whole
Westbrook.
playoff scape.
No, of all players in the playoffs,
I
of
got
all
you.
the teams in the playoffs,
I
of all
got
the
you.
players that have stepped onto the court in the playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
I think Plumlee is the number one worst player in the playoffs, and I think number two worst player in the playoffs was Russell Westbrook, starting a fight with Luka Doncic with 1 point on
Dude,
the board.
leading to the fucking meme of the playoffs too. The PJ Washington arms crossed.
Dude,
I
leading to the PJ Washington arms crossed. He from what was it, from games 2 to 6, he hit like what, 4 or 5 shots. He was not effective on defense. On offense, he bricked layups. He bricked left-handed layups. He bricked his mid-ranges. He bricked his three-pointers. He turned over the ball every chance he got. He was an embarrassment, and he needs to be off the Clippers next season.
Yeah, I got you. I'm gonna give him a C, and he gets a boost because he was put into a role that he was not. That he signed a smaller contract than he was probably promised or probably assumed that he would sign to stay with the team and be the point guard, and then he was asked to come off the bench. So and he had his moments this regular season where he was really effective, and so I think I'm going to give him a boost. Um, Russ's tenure with the Clippers really allowed me to see him from a different light, and it really made me appreciate him more as a player. Obviously, I knew what his career, the greatness of his career, and what he was able to do. But him coming to the Clippers and just like kind of endearing himself to the fans, it doesn't go unnoticed. And I really did respect that a lot about Russ. But the proof's in the pudding, particularly in this playoff series. There's not really a place in our roster for that much of an offensive negative, particularly at the guard spot. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to give him a C flat. Now let's get into the starters. Ivica Zubats.
I would give him, honestly, I would give him an A. I thought he had a fantastic season. He was injured for a little bit, but that was like his first injury pretty much ever as a Clipper. Um, and we brought in Daniel Tice to kind of give him a little bit more motivation, and I think he took that well, and he kind of played his ass off this playoffs, and I had no complaints about him at all.
Yeah, I'm giving Zoo an A plus.
Oh,
I'm giving Zoo an A plus, um, which is the highest grade on the team. I know I still have a couple more people
okay.
to go over, but yeah, Zoo. This was to me the best year of Zoo's career. I think the Harden you saw it early when we got Harden. It really it opened up a game for Zoo that we hadn't seen in the past. He was finishing a lot more aggressively. He was in position for everything. Um, Harden really helped to elevate Zoo's game, and Zoo rose to the occasion. He was still playing. Zoo's always been an underrated defender. But he was, he's working on his post game, and he was fantastic. And I gives you an A+. He was probably our most consistent offensive weapon this playoffs, and he should have been played. He should have been given the ball more, which is a shame. But I would love to see Zoo, whether it's coming off the bench or starting again. I would love to see Zoo
Mm-hmm.
playing in Intuit Dome next year. Now, this next one, there's a little bit of bias here, but Rolla, try and give your most honest grade on this individual. Our beautiful son, Terrence Mann.
The great Terrence Mann. Uh, we started off the season. I said that I would die for Terrence Mann, and the season has ended and nothing has changed. I would still die, and I would take a bullet for that man.
Yeah.
To me, he was the only player outside of. No, yeah, I feel like he was the only player on this Clipper team that really showed a passion for the game. He showed that he wanted to win, and he showed that he deserves to be a Clipper at the end of the day. And that's kind of something he's always shown his entire career. Is a reason why he's been on the Clippers for so long. And I think he will stay a Clipper for a long time, solely because he does the little things. He brings the energy. He handles the ball well. He doesn't really make stupid mistakes. He's great on defense. Statistically, he did I think he did the best job defending Luka
He
this
did.
series.
He did. He really stepped up.
There's nothing you really more you can ask from a role player. I think his regular season was pretty average, but when it comes to the playoffs, I think all we need from our role players is for them to step up just a little bit, and I think Terrence Mann stepped up a lot.
Yeah.
So did I already give him a grade?
I don't know.
I would give Terrence Mann. I'd give Terrence Mann an A for the
Okay.
season because I
Yeah.
think his playoff performance was that impactful.
Yeah, I got you. I would give him an A as well. I think during the regular season, there were moments where Terrence did this thing that he does every once in a while where he kind of loses himself a little bit. You can see him thinking too much. He'll catch the ball in the corner. Instead of putting it right up, he'll jab step a bunch of times, or he'll think about what to do next. Like, you could see the doubt. And that's something that we didn't see as much of in the playoffs. But just, considering the whole season as a whole, that's one thing that I would really love for Terrence to work on. And I think that it would be something that'll be easier to work on when he's given a more definite role. So hopefully moving on to next season, he has more of a definite role. He doesn't feel like his role is going to change from game to game. My worry with Terrence is he's a free agent in 2025. I'm
Yikes.
hoping that he doesn't walk because he's been asked to do so much and he just wants a better role out there. Terrence, if you're listening to this, please stay a Clipper for
Please,
life. We would love
please,
to
we
have
want
you
you so
retire
bad.
as a Clipper. But yeah, so we're rounding it out here. James Harden.
I'm giving James Harden an F.
Holy shit. Okay.
And that is because I was expecting James Harden to come into the Clippers. And yes, and this is solely based off of, and I know we're doing off of like actual play and expectations.
Yeah.
But this grade is solely based off of expectations
Okay.
because I wanted James Harden to come in and truly be a third superstar on the team. And I don't think we saw that from him for almost half the season. I had been calling for James Harden to score more, to become more of a scorer. He never did. I'm not really sure what he averaged, but I think there was a point in time where he was averaging like 15 points a game. And this was when Kawhi was out. And he never really took that step forward on the scoring front. And that was something I really wanted to see. He did not do so. In the playoffs, he did not play up to par, I believe. I mean, he played out of his mind game 1 and game 4, but the rest of the 4 games he looked like shit. Game 5, he had 7 points in a playoff game, which is completely unacceptable when you're the second option on the team. He has the ball in his hands every play. It's kind of baffling how that's possible for someone like James Harden. So I got to give him an F. He did not accomplish anything that I wanted to see from him, and that's kind of it.
Okay, that's fair. I'm giving him a C. I'm giving him a C flat because uh, when we were playing at our best in December and in January, he was a big part of that. He was elevating the Clippers' floor so much that when we were at our worst, or when he was at his worst, he was still a consistent playmaker that was getting guys involved. And he didn't really have much of an offseason coming before he came to the Clippers, and he kind of just jumped right in. He had about 6 games where things looked like shit, and
Mm-hmm.
from that point on, he really stepped up to the plate, and most of the time was asked what was or did what he was asked to do. So I think I give James Harden a C. As far as next year's outlook goes, if he's willing to take a mid-level exception, I would be willing to hang on to him. But anything more than that, I don't think it's worth it. Just because, obviously this whole thing didn't work. He's still
Mm-hmm.
obviously talented, but this whole thing didn't work. So up next we have, let's go ahead and do Kawhi Leonard, and
Oh,
then we'll end
okay.
with Paul George.
Oh, fantastic. Uh, yeah, I'm giving Kawhi an F. Um, we came into the season understanding that this was the last season. We're assuming that this was the last season of the 2-1-3 era. If we failed, we needed him to be healthy and be there for us when it mattered most, and he was not. Kawhi Leonard is on this team to lead us to a championship, and that was the only way I would ever give him an A. And because he didn't even, like, honestly, we can say that he played 2 games, but he didn't play 2 games.
Yeah,
He didn't play at all this playoffs. And the fact that he did not play at all these playoffs, he didn't play for the last month of the season because he was injured, inflamed knee, gives him an F. He did not
okay,
get anywhere near the A plus marker. I mean, congratulations, you did what every other NBA player does, and you played in the regular season. But we're not paying you for a regular season wins. We're paying you for the big win, and he did not even come close to giving that to us. Point
that's
blank.
fair.
Period.
That's fair. I'll give him a D plus, just because he really was so fantastic during the regular season and the games that he played. And I'm a little bit more forgiving, I think, with the injuries. Like, I shouldn't be, but I just am.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I'm giving him a D plus. I don't see a situation where he's not a Clipper next year, whether for better or for worse. It is what it is. But the man of the hour, or hour and a half, as it were, as this show is running a little bit longer. But we wanted to give you guys good content before we went into the off season. Um, the man of the hour and a half, Mr. Paul George.
Paul George, get ready to learn Chinese, buddy.
Oh my god.
This man needs to go. I'm giving Paul George. I'm giving him a D minus, and on the
Okay.
very far end, I'm giving him a 60%. Like,
Okay, you're
he
giving him a better
is,
grade than Kawhi Leonard.
yes,
Okay.
off of the fact that he at least he played, at least he
Okay.
was on that court.
Okay.
Thing is we can't even criticize Kawhi. He didn't play.
Yeah.
Paul George is getting a lot of hate, but at least he played. At least he stepped on that court. At least he tried. Well, no, he didn't even try. At least he stepped on the court.
Yeah, I was gonna say, at
Um,
least he was physically on the basketball court.
yeah, at least he stepped on the court. And the best ability is availability, and he gave that to us. He played. I mean, he wasn't even in. Was he injured at all this season? I think he played pretty much the entire season pretty consistently.
Um.
Towards the
Yeah.
end of the season, we were
Yeah.
resting him, but we had already, pretty much locked our seed.
Hmm.
But he played pretty much the entire season. He played the 6 games of the playoffs, and I mean, at least he was on that court.
Okay.
So I give him a 60%.
Okay. Yeah, I gave Kawhi a D plus. I'll give Paul George a D.
You're gonna give Kawhi a higher score than Paul George?
Yes, because
Okay.
he was physically incapable of. There was the injury thing
Okay.
with Paul George. I think that knowing that he was going into a contract year or eligible to be to have a contract extension, this was the year that Paul George was really supposed to step up,
Mm-hmm.
and he did not do that. And I mean, there's really not much else that needs to be said. He
No, I
put
get you.
together a pretty good regular season, but you kind of still saw it throughout the regular season where he was kind of taking a bit of a back role. He started out the season really hot,
Mm-hmm.
but as it got closer and closer to the playoffs, the Paul George that we all hate to see was creeping back in, and other than a couple standout games, obviously he hit that insane shot against the Cleveland Cavaliers. He had his moments, but Paul George always has his moments. That's the thing. Is like that's why we still have love for him.
Yeah.
Is like he has these moments where he endears himself to anybody that loves the sport because he's the perfect basketball player. But at the end of the day, I think he was probably the biggest reason why we didn't get past that series because I do truly believe that if Paul George played at the level that he should have, along with James Harden, um, we would have gotten past that series, but we didn't. It's all in hindsight. So Paul George, I'm giving you a D minus, and that
Bye
does it.
bye.
That does it for the season grades. We'll jump into a lot more off season discussions as they come. As I said up top, we probably won't be putting them out as regularly as we normally do, but news is always flowing in the NBA, and if anything of note happens, Roland and I are always here to jump in and give our opinions on it. So,
Yep.
yeah, I just want to end off by saying thank you guys again so much. We really appreciate you guys tuning in for this season. We have plenty more content to come, so don't go anywhere. But yeah, we really do appreciate this. This was something that Roland and I wanted to do for a long time. So
Mm-hmm.
you guys tuning in and giving your support, that makes it all worth it. So no matter what the Clippers do, no matter how many times they break our hearts, Clipper Nation, we always got each other, and we're
Yep.
always going to be fans. We're not jumping ship anytime soon. So, yeah, you can find us on Spotify, on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Deezer. Check us out on YouTube. Fill up that comment section with what you guys think. Let out your frustrations. Let it all hang out because it's over, and we need to talk about it. So, get at us on Twitter and on Instagram at Clip Service Pod. Clipper Nation, thank you so much. And
Thank you, Clipper Nation.
as always, even when we end the season in the way that we did, we got to say it. So go Clips.
Go Clips.